Hi, and welcome to this short video on how to master nonverbal communication. My name is Mark Moser. I'd like to introduce 5 short tips how we can enhance our skills in understanding and interpreting, but also in utilizing our nonverbal communication most effectively. This is so crucial both in the private and also in the corporate world that we're in. First tip is to try and collect as much data as possible. One of the risks or dangers of nonverbal communication is that we see something and we immediately try to make sense of it and interpret it and say, oh, he's doing this, that means that. The more data we collect, the more data that we have in terms of how our communication partners are using their body, both their voices, their mimics, their gestures, the more chance we have of interpreting the data and using the data that we've collected in a meaningful and useful manner. Secondly, I try to observe this process of first seeing and hearing, then trying to make sense and understand, and only as a last and third step do I try to understand the meaning or interpret what the bad body language means. One of the risks, again, is that we too quickly jump from seeing something to interpreting. And as we know, once we have an opinion to something, it's very hard to let go of that and to maintain and to cultivate a curious mind and heart. Thirdly, look out for the adapters. Adapters are gestures. They can be self-touching gestures, holding. They can be object gestures where we fiddle with something, because these gestures reveal most often some emotional development in our communication partner. Now, if I hold myself, that doesn't always have the same meaning, but why didn't I do that before? And that leads us to the next tip. Tip 4, when I communicate, I try to communicate with all of who I am. I use words as wisely as possible. I use eye contact, the tone of voice, gestures. All of this together creates meaning. One of the keys to this is to be present. When I believe what I'm communicating, when I'm with what I am intending to communicate, then my body will speak the same message. And that is called congruence, when the the non and the verbal signals and communication all say one and the same thing. We know how it is and how discongruent it can be when somebody says, I'm very happy, but the non-verbal, the mimics don't match the verbal. And lastly, establish a situative baseline of the person you're communicating with. The baseline is not a personality trait. The baseline is like the whole picture of how I behave non-verbally in a given communication context. Let's say at the beginning of a meeting, how do I behave in that moment? What are things that I do again and again non-verbally? Perhaps it's where I stand, the tone of voice, how I sit. And then I look for the variations of that baseline. So I look for the patterns and I look, when does that change? When does a person start becoming fidgety and moves a lot with the feet and shoulders? But at this topic, the person doesn't do that. But as soon as we talk about finances, I get gestures and adapters and I think, oh, okay. And as you see, I'm collecting data, trying to not jump to a conclusion, to establish a pattern and to make sense of it. If you'd like to know more about this, don't hesitate to contact me. Be a pleasure to hear from you. You can visit my website or send me an email. Thank you very much.